Me. My name is Phil Burton, and I want to welcome you all to the third session of this agility course brought to you by Performance on Purpose. Today, we're going to be diving into our emotions, and this is a certain section of our brain that we're going to be talking about and how it impacts us, and impacts those around us, especially when we're under stress. Real quickly about my background, my business partner and I, Lauren Hodges, co-founded Performance on Purpose last year after teaching this science and these concepts for over a decade. And my wife and I, we currently work from home. I'm usually on the road, but during this pandemic, I've been at home. We have three kids, all virtual schooling, two of whom are teenagers. So we're 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 loving the season of life. I can tell you that. Funny thing though, real quick. I had an opportunity to really dive deeper into some of these concepts that I'm going to be sharing with you with my children over Christmas break, and it was really helpful. And I did it really for two reasons. And the first was I wanted them to learn more about their bodies. What are all these emotions that I'm dealing with, and the hormones that are just bouncing off the walls right now? And secondly, I wanted to create a common language, and create some awareness around these emotions. So when they got hit with stress, they could recognize, hey, these are some of the emotions I'm experiencing right now. If they're not serving me well, how do I shift? How do I pivot and get back to the prefrontal cortex so I can make some sound decisions? And it's been incredibly helpful. I'll tell you, as I share this information with you, we just don't want to share the science. We want you to apply it so that it really benefits your life. And what we tell our clients all the time, that we want to take you from insight to action. And so with that said, in the last session, I believe Lauren had an opportunity to share with you some concepts around your bodies. And again, I want this to be very interactive. And I want you to put one small, tiny action you took towards your body, by that body pathway. One, atomic action step that you took. One that was too small to fail. Whether that was in your nutrition, maybe you changed up your diet or changed up some of the foods or some of the snacks you were eating. Maybe it was regarding your sleep. Maybe it was something as small as setting an alarm, maybe ending some of your work habits at a certain time, or maybe it was something around your exercise or movement, getting up and moving around the day. So please, I encourage you to put it in the chat. What was one small action step you took that was too small to fail? And so I see one said earlier bedtime. I thank you for sharing. But what about the rest of you? Again, this series is really all about you, and we can provide you with the information. But here's something that you need to understand. No amount of information or insight that you personally attain, that you receive, is as valuable as the action you will take against it. So again, we want you to have the science, but we want you to use the science. So, okay, great. I'm seeing more in the chat. I'm seeing eating water-based foods. Great. Evening walks. So you're getting out there and taking advantage. I don't know, you're out in California, so it's nice. So this is a nice time of year. Waking up with the alarm and not hitting snooze. Okay, that's good. That's solid. Did pull-ups during my breaks during the day. Fantastic. What else? We have eating healthy. I walk on my breaks and stop eating after 7 p.m. Okay, and again, depending upon your lifestyle, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But walking during your breaks, that was something that was, I know she emphasized that whole oscillation piece, talking about your breath, talking about your cycles. We all have them. We need to work with them. So it's about getting up and moving. Another person put exercising together as a family. Fantastic. So now you're not just doing it for yourself, you're bringing your family members into this. You're bringing your children into this. I think that is excellent. I really do. Eating better, exercising in smaller doses throughout the day. Somebody started yoga. That's great. Drinking more water. That is something, the whole drinking water piece can get overlooked. Again, I've worked in so many different cultures, and depending upon the stressful environment of that culture, there's a lot of stories that can be built into this, when they're getting hit with stress. And, I was out in California working with one client, and they were going through some serious change. They had been bought over, and they were saying that, and different departments were being laid off. And, people were saying, what, I got to prove my value. I got to show value. And the one thing that I can do is show up for meetings all the time. And I got to be on time for those meetings. The problem was those meetings were stacked back to back to back. And so the concept they started thinking was, what? I can't use the restroom during the day. And to prevent me from using the restroom, I stopped drinking water. I stopped hydrating. They literally stopped hydrating throughout the day. And that was their story. They kind of bought into that. So drinking water, that's so critically important. Family game night. This is great. Hiking, riding bikes as a family. Thank you all for sharing. Again, as we go through this, I'm sorry, I don't understand Spanish very well. And shame on me because I took it in high school, but I honestly can't remember, being truthful. But as we get into this, I want to do a quick review. So you remember this stress response, and this is something that Lauren taught on, that this is it's a really a biological reaction to what we perceive as a threat. And this biological reaction is something we have absolutely no control over. What we do have control over, though, is how long we stay in that space. And remember, it's a two-part involuntary process. We have the sympathetic and we have the parasympathetic. That parasympathetic piece calms all of our levels. It slows our heart rate and our breathing down. But the sympathetic part of the nervous system, that's when that lizard brain is highly active. You remember that? And you get the cortisol is released, adrenaline is released, 30% of your blood is pooling in that lower third part of your brain. And immediately after that, an emotion, you experience some sort of emotion, whether that is anger or rage or sometimes humiliation or frustration, whatever that is. So I want to get into this for just a moment as we dive in. I want you to list three emotions, three dominant emotions that you've been experiencing over the last week. So, pull out a pen and a pad, and I want you to write down three of the top emotions you have experienced throughout this week. And you can include the weekend as well. So if we were to share, if you want to share in the emotion in the chat, that would be fantastic. So, okay, I'm great. Thank you. I'm seeing satisfaction, frustration, confusion, stress, fear of the unknown. That's very common. That's you're not alone there. Fear of the unknown. There's so much uncertainty out there, and worry, being overwhelmed, happiness, again, uncertainty. There's fatigue, anxiety. Yeah. So you can see that. Here we're not alone. Another person saying anxious. So you can see how some of these emotions that people are experiencing in various households, there's a lot of overlap. Stress and sadness and overwhelm, stress and usefulness and tired. Somebody said they were happy and stressed and excited. That's great. Depression and anxiety. Again, feeling exhausted. I'm hearing that stress. I'm hearing anxiety a lot. I'm hearing exhausted. I'm hearing joy, though, and happiness, too, which is great. I'm happy to hear that. Thrilled to hear that, actually. But I'm hearing a lot of anxiety. That word keeps popping up in the chat box right now. Stress and frustration, overwhelmed, exhausted. Yes. So I'm seeing these words, and I want to ask you a really important question. Do you believe, and I want you to write this down. I want you to think and just write this down. Do you believe these emotions that you're experiencing right now are a problem for you? And if so, how so? How are these emotions that you're experiencing, how are they cropping up, and how are they manifesting itself really in your life, as far as maybe how it's impacting your performance or at work or with your relationships or what have you? It's an important question, and here's why. Because what I'm trying to do is draw out some awareness now. This is an awareness piece. Um, okay, so somebody said social isolation. That's something that we have to be very cautious of. Because a lot of times when we get like this, we feel like we're alone and we feel like we're on an island and that nobody can relate to us. So we have to be careful of our emotions. Somebody else said short-term memory loss and loss of motivations. These things are real. This is the impact of our emotions. Just for somebody else says fatigue. You need more rest. Uncertainty makes me more withdrawn. Again, another person, you're not, so the person that said social isolation, you're not alone here. A lot of people withdraw from others because they feel like there's no connection. People can't relate and understand what we're going through. A temporary setback for an hour, I get that. Again, lack of motivation. Yes. And again, all I'm trying to do here is build a case of awareness. We are extremely complicated human beings. Did you know that there are 34,000 distinguishable emotions that a human can experience? 34,000 different emotions we can experience. And, most of them are negative, part of that, fight or flight, part of that survival mode. But the primary functions for these emotions are really to provide information and to mobilize us to do something. That's what they do. And if you take a look here, you can see this wheel of emotions was created by Dr. Bluchick, in 2001, as he tried to categorize all 34,000. And as we went through this process, he discovered that there was actually 8 core emotions. The rest of them were spin-offs or a combination of emotions. And our emotions really directly impact our performance because they affect the way that we care for ourselves and the way that we relate to other people. And what's really interesting here is that recent science has revealed that men and women pick up on emotions differently. Based on the recent research, women perceive their emotional landscape with more data points than men. They have greater resolution and greater clarity. In other words, they have more information and a greater breadth of emotions to draw from and respond to. And they have the capability for greater emotional intelligence if they choose to train it and if they choose to use it. It's interesting here. We used to think that our emotions had nothing to do with our logic and our rational thinking, but this recent science has proven otherwise. In fact, our emotions play a huge role in thinking clearly and rationally and even making sound decisions. And here's why. It's because of the orbital frontal cortex. It's the critical link between our rational and our emotional brain. It is highly involved in decision making and emotional regulation. In fact, it's the combination of this rational thinking and emotional awareness that leads to greater true self-awareness for ourselves, which allows us to connect with ourselves and with other people on a much deeper level. So here's what I really want you to know. Bottom line here. Our emotions, again, they provide key information. That's what they do. And highly intelligent and emotionally aware people, they practice, they learn, and they get curious about their emotions. We call this emotional curiosity. And unlike Dr. Pluchik, we don't try and categorize all 34,000. What we try and do is break down our emotions using 2 key variables. The first one being quality. Is it a positive emotion or is it a negative emotion? And the other being quantity. Is it high energy or is it low energy? If you look at this quadrant here, if you look at the left side, the entire left side, Q1 and Q3, are all survival-based emotions. It's all survival. Q2 and Q4, those are opportunity-based emotions. But each quadrant, we experience them all and they all serve a purpose for us. The upper right energizes us. The upper left mobilizes us, serves us well in the fight or flight. The bottom left heals us, and the bottom left, Q3, heals us, and the bottom right renews our energy and restores us. So I want to get into some data mining here for just a moment. By percentage, excuse me, let me get in here. By percentage, where do you spend, excuse me, sorry about that. By percentage, which quadrant do you spend most of your time at work? Let's deal with work first. And I want you to break it down by percentages. So it could be Q1, 25%, and Q2, 75%, and Q3, 0, and Q4, 0. Or it could be 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. So where do you spend? And please share it in the chat. Again, we create a space here. There's no judgment. I mean, this is real life, and it's about your life. So that's not what we do here. We just want to, when we share with each other, we learn. And we learn that we're not in isolation. We're not working in silos. We get a chance to know that we're not alone. So please share, just from the work component, where do you honestly spend most of your time at work? So I see one, and thank you for sharing this. So one person is saying 80% in Q2. That's great. So you are connected, you're responsive, you're energized. That is fantastic. Oh, and thank you for the bless you. Equally all in, equally in all four quadrants. Okay, so 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. Anybody else? Again, all we're doing here is building a case for awareness. That's all we're doing. So somebody spent in Q1 10%, Q2 65%, Q3 5%, and Q4 20%. Thank you for sharing that. High Q2 at work now. That's great. Q1 25%. Somebody else saying 50% in Q1 and 50% in Q3. So they're on their survival-based part. They're strictly survival for them. 50% in Q3. Okay, so in the burnout zone. So we're seeing quite a few people in the burnout zone. So it's interesting. We're seeing people in the burnout zone. We're also seeing people in the high performance zone where they are highly energized and highly engaged. That's exciting. I'm very happy to hear this and to see this. Okay, so let's flip it up for a minute. Now let's go from work to home. Oh, we got one more. We got 25%, 25% in Q1, 50% in Q2, Q3 5%, and Q4 20%. Okay. But let's flip it. Let's take a time out and let's flip it to home. I want you to write down the percentages on the sheet. Where are you spending most of your time at home now? So, I'm just wrapping up one person said they were a photographer. They are Q3 every waking moment. Okay, that burnout zone. So let's go to home because this is really important. Where are you spending most of your time? Again, no judgment. That's not what we do here. Somebody said they spend most of their time in Q4. This is great. That's the renewal. You're getting your recovery. At home, it's about 25%. Okay, so 25% all the way around. And here's the thing. Everyone's situation is different. So people can be dealing with ailing parents or, our kids. We all know they deal with different situations. So, this is real talk. Q1 is 5%, Q2 70%, which is great. Q3 10%, Q4 15%. Okay. Somebody said they were always in Q4 at home. Great. Q3 at home for someone, and they spend most of the time in burnout at home because it's a lot. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and kids learn differently. We understand this. Let's see, 90% Q4, 10% Q2. Okay, so thank you for sharing some of your numbers with me, because this is important. So, and there are no right or wrong answers here. So let's move on. And I want to go to take the next step. And so the next step is this. Name one or two emotions you typically identify with in each quadrant. So when you're in the upper right, for example, right, that Q2, are you more energized? Are you more passionate? What about in Q1 in the upper left? Are you somebody who gets a little bit more anxious or maybe unfocused, gets a little rattled? Or are you down in Q4? What does that look like? Are you more joyful and relaxed and relieved? So identify, the words, the specific words, those specific emotions you experience when you're in each quadrant. I'll give you a moment to write that down. So again, I want to thank you all for your authenticity. I really do appreciate it. So I'm seeing somebody that said they're anxious and they're focused. Somebody else saying their mind tends to wander and they get anxious, connected, and at peace. Well, that's awesome. So somebody said in Q1 they were irritated, Q2 focused, Q3 disconnected, and Q4 calm. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So identify an emotion you identify with in each one of those quadrants. Excellent. Sad and peaceful. Okay. Now let's take a moment and go and drive this down even further. Okay. I want to know what is really the impact of your general sense of well-being and those around you when you experience those emotions. So let's start with the negative emotions first. When you are irritated or when you're feeling burned out or sad, okay, or unfocused, what is your sense of well-being? And first address yourself and then address those around you within perhaps your own family. So maybe when you're dealing with your kids, what's the impact on them? Honestly, I'm going to give you a few moments to focus in and write that down. What's the impact on yourself first? Just dealing with the negative emotions. So when you're in Q1 or in Q3, what is the impact for yourself, on yourself, and perhaps your spouse or your children, or if you have somebody living with you, a family member? So thank you for sharing. I'm getting some feedback here. Again, this is all about how now it begins to manifest itself into real life. This is what we're talking about. So I'm seeing somebody gets anxious and it causes stress to my daughter. I am sure you're not alone here. Personally, my health has declined. Yes, that's real. It does impact our health. There's no question about that. Impact on self, our stress, the children, disconnected, or you avoid. So again, I'm hearing that withdrawal piece, not only from the people at work, but also maybe from some of the people at home. Okay, yes, I feel all you guys on all levels. So on all levels, I understand that. So somebody else said that dealing with can lead to feelings in Q2. An impact for me is when I start to yell at my kids and end up feeling even worse. Sometimes we take it out on the people that we love. We get stressed. We get hit with that stress response, right? Those emotions. Remember the cortisol, the adrenaline release. We're experiencing that emotion, and we have a tendency to take it out on the people that are closest to us. So thank you for sharing that. And that happens. You're not alone in that. That happens to a lot of people. So fights with the kids and with the spouse, I'm seeing trying to be a single mom with 4 on distant learning on 4 different grade levels. It can be exhausting. Yeah, so, here's the thing. Here's what we need to know. We're in this common space. The good news is we experience positive emotions as well. So I want to switch gears here. And I need you to write down, and again, for the case of awareness, to write down when you're on the right side of this quadrant, upper right or bottom right, what is the impact of your well-being and the well-being of those around you? Again, your spouse, your kids, maybe it's people at work. When you're in the Q2 or Q4, what's the impact? Take that emotion, whatever emotion you wrote down in Q2 that you identified with, or Q4 that you identified with. What's the impact of your well-being when you're experiencing that emotion and the impact of others? Okay, so somebody said, I see a big smile, I'm assuming on their face. Maybe it's their kid's face. Another big smile. Joyful and relaxed with the family. Excellent. Somebody else is agreeing with her. Okay. So it impacts your health not only on your children, but your grandparents as well. Somebody else says they feel at peace, more involved. So now people are getting reconnected and re-engaged when they're experiencing certain emotions. They sleep better. Excellent. And they don't grind their teeth. Kids are more talkative around them and they are connected. This is great. So again, all we're doing here is building awareness. This is really important. So let's go deeper. I need you now to identify one trigger that puts you in each one of these quadrants. So what is it that's something that makes you anxious or makes you fearful or frustrated? What is something that excites you or energizes you? What's that trigger? What is something that brings you peace and calms you down? And maybe what is something that makes you exhausted, maybe a little bit hopeless or sad? So again, diving even further, we're grinding down to our real life, what we're experiencing at work and what we're experiencing at home. What is it? What are those key triggers that bring you to those respective quadrants? All right, somebody said their kids. Bring them there. Now, the question is, do your kids bring you to Q2 or to Q1? I'm joking. Anyway, when I see my kids, they're doing good at school. I'm one happy mom. Excellent. When something doesn't come together like a plan and one task becomes 10 tasks, that can drive you. To me personally, it's hearing music. Music is critical. It can be a nice trigger to calm you or to even get you hyped and excited. The kids. What makes me happy is my son. What makes me sad is seeing my son stressful for the Chromebook, okay? When one of my friends makes me feel like I have to choose between them. Anxiety, trying to be everything to everyone. I understand that. Paying bills or doing too many things at once. Music calms me down. So now we're identifying triggers. This is going to be really important as we continue to move forward here. So I got a few more here. Another one in music. Hopeless about the financial future. So the finances can be very stressful. Paying bills can be very stressful during this time. We know we're in an economic crisis, right? There's massive job loss. People are in a variety of different situations here. We understand that. So I want to ask you an important question. And how many of you, honestly, throughout your career, and maybe you're dealing with this now, where you spent your weekend on the right side of this quadrant, Yeah, you were either on the upper right where you're connected and responsive and energized and excited, or maybe you're in the bottom right, just relaxed and calm and peaceful. And then Monday morning comes around and you're driving into work. Let's pretend it's pre-COVID. And I know some of you are working from home, some of you may be back in the office, but let's go pre-COVID. You're driving back, and as soon as you see that building, you dart over to the upper left or the bottom left. You're not exactly sure why, but you get hit with a stress response. You don't understand where it's coming from, but you get hit with the stress response where you begin to, kind of grip that steering wheel real tightly, where as you begin to become real frustrated and tense, or maybe you just feel the life and just the energy being completely sucked out of you. Have you ever experienced anything like that before? Where, again, on the weekend, you're relaxed, but as soon as you see that building, it's like, anybody ever been there? So I'm getting a couple of yeses here. Yes, yes. I got no one, no. Okay, great. Several yeses I'm saying. Okay, so here's what I need you to understand. Here's the tool. When that happens, when you experience that, so somebody said, I stayed home as a mom for 16 years, so my anxiety was getting 3 kids to school, activities, back to work, for 5 years. Okay, so okay. Had some coworker situations that caused anxiety. Yeah, so when you get in that situation where you dart over to that upper left or bottom left, you're not really sure of the source. What I need you to do, and Lauren mentioned this, is that oscillation process, right? I need you, ideally you want to be in the upper right. You want to be in Q2 when you're performing at work throughout the day, right? We understand that. You can't stay there the entire day, right? Because we want that oscillation process. Ideally, we want an oscillation process where we go from Q2 to Q4, from the top right to the bottom right. When you get hit and go over to the far left, whether it's the upper left or the bottom left, you need to drive yourself down back to Q4, back to the bottom right, where you become calm and peaceful and relaxed to shoot back up again to the top right. That's the key. So you need to identify that trigger in the bottom right, where that renewal zone, to get back up to the upper right, that high performance zone. That's the key. Whatever that trigger may be for you, and it's different for everybody, different for different people. Sometimes we don't understand the source. We just know we're experiencing something. This is the way that we feel. And sometimes we can't move off it for whatever the reason. And so this is the reason why, again, our emotions are there not to be buried, not to be hidden, not to be swept underneath the rug. That's not what we do with them. Our emotions, they provide us clues. As I said before, we want you to practice emotional curiosity. Here's why. Because when you do, it allows you to stop, it allows you to pause and process the emotions that you're experiencing in the moment and recognize whether they're serving you well or not serving you well. And if they're not serving you well, you have an opportunity to switch and move off of them. I mentioned before that our emotions directly impact our performance because of the way that we connect with people, whether it's our family or our boss or our peers. And it really, bottom line, affects our communication. So I want to move off from how it feels now to actually how it looks. Our emotions also impact our body language. And people can tell as soon as you walk into a meeting, whether you're open and receptive to new ideas or whether you are completely shut down. There was a researcher, Dr. Amy Cuddy, found that 80% of our communication is nonverbal. 55% is our body language, and 25% is our facial expressions. Think about that. The other 20% is verbal. 15% of that is our tone, again, impacted by our emotions, and 5%, only 5% of our communication is our words. Think about that for a moment. So, I mentioned before that, I have 3 kids. They're doing the virtual thing from home. And sometimes I'll go out and check on them. And I noticed that my middle one, oh, my middle one, God bless her. Sometimes when she gets an answer wrong, she's like this, looking into the screen, looking at her teacher. And I'll walk by and I'm like, sweetheart, countenance, countenance. She's like, what? I'm like, whatever, forget it. Honestly, good Lord. I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with that before, but what I'm asking you here is honestly, how do you look when you get hit with that stress response? If I could, what I'd love to do is pull everybody's faces up and say, hey, show me your go-to face under stress. What does that look like? And some of you may be thinking, I don't know what my go-to face, I don't even know if I have a go-to face. Most of us, yes, we do. Yes, we do. Because it's the face that you make when somebody can come in, whether it's your spouse or your kid, and be like, uh-oh, what's wrong? That is your go-to face underneath stress. That's what that looks like. And so the bottom line is sometimes we lose sight of how our emotions not only impact us, but how they impact other people. And so I want you to think about, what do you look like, when you get hit with that stress response? What does your body language look like? I'm seeing some your go-to face. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. I love it. I love the little icons. Thank you for sharing that. That's really funny. I want you to think about that. Again, building awareness. What does our body language look like from a work standpoint and from a home standpoint? What does our facial expressions look like? Somebody said they are shut down and they're cold. Think about that, shut down and cold. And we understand that. When we get hit with stress, we respond differently. Some people withdraw. Some people get angry and frustrated. They become very vocal, right? And so again, people back off. And we can impact other people. Here's the other thing I want you to consider. How many of you can identify with something like this? How many of you have ever had somebody say something to you in a meeting at like 10 o'clock in the morning where they just took a shot at you or just, dressed you down in the middle of a meeting, and you got hit with that stress response right in the middle of your chest, and all of a sudden your brain is racing to find a response, an appropriate response. And for whatever the reason, you can't come up with one. The meeting ends, and the rest of the day, you're so distracted by what happened and trying to say, you know what, if I see that person again, I'm going to, say this. And the anger and the frustration last the entire day. So by 5 p.m., you are still fuming. Anybody ever have that happen? Yes. So somebody said, I feel like a truck ran over me when that happened. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your honesty. I really do appreciate it. Confused and stressed. Felt like I got hit by a ball. Yes. Somebody said all the time. This happens quite a bit. Getting a lot of degrees. Yes and yes. Feel so terrible at work. But again, I'm asking you, are you still fuming at 5 p.m.? Here's what I need you to understand. When this happens, a lot of our business professionals, they're hard charging, they're type A personalities, really hard working, but they have a very difficult time attempting to pivot. They have a tough time doing it. And so when this happens, what I need you to do is attempt to shrink your emotional refractory period. Your emotional refractory period is a period of time an emotion is just gripped you and it's just holding you and you can't move past it. And so when that happens, you say to yourself, you know what? I'm not going to surrender my day. I'm not going to be angry the entire day and bring this into my home. From now on, I'm going to be angry for 1 hour. And during that hour, I'm going to go, I'll work out. I'll go work out and just blow off some steam. And as time moves on and you train on this, you say to yourself, you know what? I don't have an hour to give. I can't work out in the middle of the day right now. I'm going to be angry for 20 minutes. I'm going to go for a nice drive, calm myself down. And then over time, you maybe say, I don't even have 20 minutes to give. And you say, I'm going to be angry for 2 minutes. I'm going to go sit down literally in my car and scream as loud as I possibly can. And then I'm good. I bring myself back down to homeostasis and I'm good. That's what this should look like. That's what I'm hoping. The idea is to shrink it. And it sounds like, some of you have mastered this. Somebody said yes, but it gets myself for not letting things go. It's interesting. I had my wife was working in pharmaceuticals many years ago, and she was having somebody that was driving her crazy, just kind of picking at her and kind of digging at her, and it would kind of ruin her day. And I told her one day when she got home, I said, "Hon, don't let somebody who doesn't really care about you ruin your day. Don't let them rob your day. Can't afford that. We only have a limited amount of days. Don't let them steal it from you." And so, she's kind of mastered that. She's gotten really good at it now. Somebody said in the chat, how about not letting people make us angry at all? Is there a way to do that? Okay, so that's a great question. First of all, I will say this. You need to determine in your life, to answer that question, you need to determine who warrants your stress and what warrants your stress. Because sometimes you're going to have people and things and situations that are coming at you, and you have to determine for yourself and actually predetermine for yourself, am I going to let this person nag me to death or bother me to death or get to me or eat at me, or am I not? Or am I going to let this situation or this task or whatever it is drive me crazy? You need to predetermine that. Was there any other questions? So somebody said to help her, they listen to their favorite song. Again, music impacts the brain in many different ways. Chuck an egg. That works. I like that. That's pretty funny. I struggle with internalizing too much. Yes, so we can't just hold it all in. We can't. We have to find ways to release it. And it's not just for us. It's also for our children too, because to the point of the internalizing it, our kids can do the same thing. How many of you, and I know this happened to me in our family, have had a child, it's Friday afternoon, and somebody says something to them at school, and they come home and they're completely deflated. And they're deflated, just the entire weekend is just completely ruined. And you spend literally all day Friday or Saturday and Sunday pulling your child out of this deep, dark abyss. And you're like, honey, some ice cream? No. Son, how about a movie? No. Dinner? Water? Anything that requires your survival? No. It's like, it's exhausting. It can drive you crazy. But again, it's important for them to put this into practice as well. So many people, and it's not just with kids, with adults too, and I'm sure you've seen this, maybe it's a family member or somebody that you work with, or maybe your best friend, have a very difficult time moving past pain. How many of you know somebody that just can't get over stuff? Here's why this is happening. Because once that stress response hits them, right, those chemical reactions are firing off, and those neurons, they let those neurons fire and wire together, time in and time out, and they don't take into account this refractory period, and they don't shift, they don't pivot. And so they let these certain neurons will fire and wire together. And because that's doing that, that's taking place in their brains, that's the reason why they can't move past this pain. So here's the key. We talk about renewal and redirection here. And this is where I want to go with this. So when it comes to moving past this, I'm looking at the chat here. We all have pain and get hurt in life. We can't let it stop. Yes, you're absolutely right. We all get hit. Every last one of us. We all experience pain in different ways, and we can't let it stop us. But sometimes, honestly, we know people, and maybe it's ourselves, that just get stuck. But I need you to understand the science of why you're stuck. Again, it goes back to those neurons that you are choosing or that you are allowing to fire off. You're not allowing yourselves to pivot. here are some opportunities here in this. You can see the slide here, a quick call from home. Or a quick call to home, a brief chat with a colleague, a workout, a deep breath, a joke. Many of you mentioned music. Music is fantastic. One of the things I want to focus on is gratitude. So let's take a moment. I want to spend 1 minute. I want you to think and write down some things that come to mind when it comes to your gratitude. So let me just, before I lose track of time here, 1 minute. I want you to create a list of things and people you truly appreciate. Okay, that's time. That's 1 minute. I'm looking in the chat here, and somebody said they'd like to watch videos. So this reflection is very helpful. Sometimes people just suck. Okay, it is what it is. And that's true. Sometimes they do. It is what it is, like you said. So family. So thank you for putting in the chat some of the things that you're grateful for. Somebody said God, my husband, children, siblings, pets, family, healthy daughter, sweet home, amazing career, family. Okay, so we're going to do one more exercise real fast because I want to long chats with my best friend. That people are still kind, appreciate kind and compassionate people. I care about my life and my personal health as well as my children and God. Somebody said always God first, friends, family, and health. So thank you for sharing this. So right now, I want you to identify one person. I want you to text that person. Yes, I keep on forgetting. I'm on the East Coast, by the way. I live in Florida. So you guys are on the West Coast. So it's still early. So I'll give you an opportunity. I want you to pull out your cell phones right now really fast. And I want you to text somebody that you care deeply about and tell them that you love them and tell them that you're proud of them. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to do that. Just simply tell you know what? I love you and I'm proud of you. Two very critically important words. I'll give you a moment to do that. Okay. And now I want to know in the chat, how did you feel about that? How'd that go for you? When you were writing this list down and when you were sending this text out, pass the tissues. I understand that. These simple, small things. Remember, we talk about these atomic steps, small things that you can do, small things that you can take action on. Too small to fail is what we encourage people on, right? So that is something that we can do. Realize I don't say it enough. Really warm feeling. Again, thank you for sharing this. Really appreciate it. So the other, as we begin, we only got a few minutes here. So I want to get into this. The other piece to this is when we get upset and we're frustrated, the other thing that we can do is meditate, slow down our breathing. People always ask, what's some of the best apps? There's Headspace out there, Stop, Think, and Breathe. But the key piece to this is slowing your breathing down to trigger the parasympathetic part of your nervous system. You can do that through your breathing. So when somebody gets hit, when you get hit with that stress response, this is a simple trigger for you. Just know that you need to breathe deeply and slowly and bring all of your levels back down. But I want to practice this. We'll meditate just for a couple of minutes here because I want to take questions at the end. I want to leave room for that. And again, some of the benefits of meditating: reduces symptoms of anxiety, increases the memory and learning piece. It reduces the impact of that stress response. And it also reduces symptoms of stress and anxiety, and depression. So let's take a moment. Again, I got my phone here, and I want you to focus. Now, a lot of times when we meditate, there are a million different things that are coming through our minds. I get that, understand that. When that takes place, and it likely will for many of us, I want you to simply focus, go back to your breathing and exhaling. Just focus on your exhale. Okay? Just focus on your breathing. And you can if you want, you can put your hand on your belly and watch it rise and feel it fall. Feel it rise and fall. Ready, set, go. Let's take a moment here. Okay, time. So let's take a moment and reflect. How did that go for you? Was it relaxing? Was it peaceful? How'd that go? Was it fast? Too short? All right, so thank you. Very relaxing. I'm hearing relaxing, so relaxing, peaceful. It just calms us down. And it's something very simple, a little fidgety. I understand that. But it's something very simple that we can do right in the moment. It only takes 2 minutes out of our day, to calm us down and bring us back down to homeostasis. So I want to leave you, take the next few minutes to ask if you have any questions that you need to be addressed when it comes to our emotions and that emotional response that we have, that stress response that we have. Any questions that can help you with before we kind of wrap here? Because this is important, because it does impact our overall well-being and the well-being of others around us, especially if we're lashing out or withdrawing. All that's real. So thank you for, well, first of all, let me say this. Thank you all for coming tonight. I really appreciate this. I hope that you, I hope that you all found this really helpful. And I just want to leave you with something that was really helpful to me and my childhood. And it was a simple thing, a simple statement that was passed along to me that stayed with me for a very long time. And now I pass along to my own children. And that was and that's this. When you get hit and you feeling down, you get with that stress response and you're feeling down, or you feel like the whole world's coming down and the world's crashing down upon you. That whole gratitude thing, there was a statement in my family, and that was simply this: focus, focus, focus on your blessings. That was something that my father said over and over and over and over and over again in my household when I was growing up. And till this day, my dad passed away back in 2003. So decades later, that still, I still hold on to that. And now I'm passing that along to my children. That's a phrase that floats throughout my house. So when you get hit, focus, focus, focus on that gratitude, focus on your blessings. Again, I want to thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you all for your time tonight. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. I appreciate it. Okay, I got a question here. Wait, how do you help yourself when you find yourself in Q1 and your child is in the same? That's a great question. So first, you have to calm down yourself, right? If you're frustrated and your child is frustrated, you as the adult have got to calm down first. Okay, you have to be able to shift out of those negative emotions. That emotional awareness, you have to recognize: is this emotion that I'm experiencing serving me well right now in my communication, in the way that I'm trying to connect with my child right now? And you have to go to that refractory period, calm yourself down, and then you need to calm your child down so that you can continue to move forward and make progress, right? Our emotions are real, but the key here is that emotional refractory period, shrinking it down. And when you're screaming at each other, listen, every household is different, every situation is different, but the love piece, the love factor has got to be the foundation. If you can, come back down to that ground level of love, that's going to be the key, honestly. So I appreciate it. Unfortunately, we're kind of out of time here, but God bless each and every one of you. And I thank you for your time. Bye-bye.